So in chapter 14, we're talking about psychological disorders. Mental disorders can affect anyone, right? Regardless of age, gender, amount of perceived happiness in their life, money, success, right? Psychological illnesses do not discriminate against anyone. And as a matter of fact, you yourself may have experienced a mental disorder of some kind in your life, or at least know someone who has these challenges in their own lives. So mental disorders are typically characterized by extreme distress, impairment, often limiting a person's ability to carry out their daily activities, right? That's when we know something's gone from a quirk to something that's more problematic in a disorder, when it disrupts your daily life. At the same time, many people suffer from them silently. They don't tell anyone about it, right? They don't tell anyone they know and that's close to them. And in extreme cases, they can be lethal. They can lead to self-injury, maybe even suicide by death. So there is a great need for us to better understand this, understand psychological disorders and what causes them. Although there are deviations from the norm, not all deviations are disorders, right? There can just be some things, like I said, that are called quirks, that are different, unusual, and that aren't necessarily disorders. They don't meet the criteria for a disorder. Some people just simply think differently about the world than we do. For instance, labeling too, right? That's a real problem that we can have in our society. When people are given a diagnosis, we often label them as their diagnosis. So instead of saying that someone is schizophrenic, we would probably want to say, this person suffers from schizophrenia, not this person, he's ADHD. No, the person is not their disorder, right? We are much more than what we suffer from and what our challenges might be. So in order to communicate though, once someone is diagnosed with a psychological disorder, we need to be able to communicate between professionals. And so we use something called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, DSM, right? It's a classification system. It describes symptoms to diagnose, recognize mental disorders, and indicates how one disorder can be distinguished from another disorder. The biopsychosocial model suggests that biological, sociological, and psychological and social factors, they all come into play when we're trying to understand and diagnose mental disorders. So, just a few mental disorders to go over. What about phobias, right? We've all heard of those, know people that may have phobias. People are afraid of spiders. Some people are afraid of speaking in public, and afraid of being in enclosed spaces like an elevator. So these are anxiety disorders that involve excessive and persistent fears of a specific object, activity, or situation. Right? It's not just, oh, I have a test coming up and I'm feeling anxious about that. No, it's much more than that, okay? So then we also go into more severe psychological disruptive disorders like schizophrenia. So those suffering from schizophrenia often experience hallucinations, delusions, are unable to determine reality from just what is going on in their own mind, right? Schizophrenia is not multiple personality disorder. Those are very different things. Schizophrenia, you see and hear things that aren't there. You experience things that aren't based in reality, right? So personality, multiple personality disorder is when you have at least two distinguishable personalities. You may not, experience those things like hallucinations and such, but you have several distinct personalities. Going on, mood disorders. So just as it sounds, are disorders of the mood, an individual's experience of emotion. So you have depressive disorders, bipolar disorders, right? So depressive disorders can be major depressive disorder or dysthymia, which is a more mild form of depression. Unfortunately, those who suffer from psychological disorders often experience suicidality, right? They're unsure of how to cope and how to move on and move through this disorder. So they may go to extreme lengths to try to stop what's happening inside of them. A recent survey showed that adolescents have a particularly high rate of suicide. And white men over the age of 85 also have the highest risk of suicide in the United States, particularly those who suffer from cancer and cardiovascular disease. Approximately 90% of adults who complete suicide have a diagnosable psychiatric disorder. Major depressive disorder, alcohol abuse, dependence, and schizophrenia are the most frequent diagnoses of suicidal individuals. Then we have non-suicidal self-injury. People who don't mean to kill themselves but do engage in self-harm. This is the direct, deliberate destruction of body tissue in the absence of any intent to die, right? And it's been reported since the beginning of recorded history. We've seen this in folks. However, it's a behavior that appears to be on the rise over the past decades. So as you can see, it is incredibly important to not only understand these psychiatric disorders, but have empathy and compassion for those who are struggling with them. Again, if this doesn't happen to you, it's more than likely going to be the case that you're going to know someone in your lifetime who does struggle with this. And the best thing you can do is listen with an open ear and an open heart and try to understand and show compassion and empathy for these folks, as well as get them the help that they need. So get on Moodle, get on Launchpad, watch your videos, get on the discussion board, and we'll move into the next chapter next week. All right, talk to you later. Bye.